We're back. Okay, let's jump right back into it. Now, you were talking, Josefina, about that you felt that English is not on a neutral plane with Spanish. Rather, Spanish is on...
Right. You know, we're assuming that English and Spanish are treated like this on an equal plane, and they're not. In the United States, Spanish is considered inferior, whether we like it or not. If you're in the United States, you speak Spanish, you are considered inferior. There's very much a whole race and class
I disagree
issue
with you,
because
as a matter of fact...
Wait, I'm not finished yet, because within that inferiority, there's also the snobby attitude between the Mexicanos from Mexico who speak supposedly Castellano and perfect Spanish, and the pochos who don't know how to speak it right. So there's another level of unequal ground there, because there's the people that say if you don't speak Spanish or don't speak it correctly, you are inferior.
No, I agree with you, but you have outdated information. As a matter of fact, in the last decades, the growth of Spanish as a second language in the United States has grown over 13%. Of the 1.1 million of people who are learning foreign languages in the public school system, more than 500,000 are learning Spanish. Perception changes because the world changes.
Why did 187 pass so overwhelmingly?
Because
why have all this
legislation
that has been
let me finish.
Latinos
and
Spanish-speaking people specifically.
187 has nothing to do with language.
Nothing to do with that.
It has to do with
immigration.
attacking Latinos.
No.
Poor Latinos.
Mira,
this is something that I always
it's just you cannot bring 187 to everything having to do with Latinos.
And I always
no, let me finish because
my point is that, thanks God, to the southern part of the United States, ladies and gentlemen, we have Mexico. Because if we were to have China, the other side of the border, we'll be speaking Chinglish here. You know? And with more than 60 million undocumented Chinese people here. You know, for people to come, and I do respect very much Spanglish. I don't accept it, I don't tolerate it. I do respect a lot the calor with Mexican Americans, but I do not respect people coming from other countries to tell us how Spanish and how English should be spoken here.
And
so that's my opinion, right? That's what I'm here for.
Okay, I understand what you're saying.
See, but I think that it will make a mistake if every time, you know, this is a democracy. We have propositions. If you are against, vote. But we cannot take everything as a direct attack on the community, because what we're doing is we are attacking the self-esteem of our people. And language has nothing to do with it.
I want to talk about the little pochitos, which are the kids that you hear, and they're at La Liquor Store, and they are speaking what we're talking about. Okay, do you guys feel it is better for us to tell these kids, don't speak any Spanish? Why? Because your Spanish is bad. Don't speak it until you speak it perfectly. What are our options?
Are we going to make La Opinión Spanglish? It's just like ridiculous.
Nobody's talking about
Are we going to make the LA Times Spanglish? No, I'm so sorry.
I don't think it has to do with making La Opinión Spanglish or making the LA Times Spanglish, but it has to do with recognizing that there are different languages being spoken and that there is a reality in California particularly that we have to acknowledge.
So should I learn Tagalog? Should I learn Korean?
We should recognize,
where's the limit?
We should recognize that Spanglish is part of a culture that we cannot separate culture, language, and expression.
It may not be part
Let's
of your
look at some of the
culture.
publications.
But if you're Chicano,
well, I'm talking as a communicator.
Here,
I'm talking as a communicator, as a writer for an agency. My responsibility deals with writing the right and proper language. I cannot use Spanglish in my articles that I write. So therefore, if my neighbor is speaking Spanglish, it's not my business to tell them, hey, you're speaking the wrong Spanish.
But I bet you use standard Mexican Spanish syntax, but you put in words there that are new words.
I use international Spanish, not Castilian. Let me give you an example. This is an article in a paper in Chile.
Standard Spanish.
Okay.
Standard
Look
Spanish.
Look at here what they say. El formarse una clara identidad de quienes les gustan los 4x4, los jeeperos. Taken out of jeeps. You know, they're talking about.
A new one.
So this is a new one. Okay, this is another one here. El winche. Estos vehículos tienen winches for the winch in front of the. So these are irresponsible people that are not using the proper language.
Or they're just
Spanglish,
like rock and roll, and
I don't think, Silvina, that you and I are arguing that Spanglish needs to replace the correct Spanish.
No, but
nobody is saying that.
Yes, you're not arguing today that it needs to replace it. But if your ideas become dominant, it will replace it, because you will be destroying English and Spanish.
That's right.
Well, do we fear of authors like Sandra Cisneros or
I
Ana
love Sandra
Castillo
Cisneros,
or
and I
Gary
love her Purple
Well,
House.
but that's the
but that doesn't
reality.
mean that
How
she
many books has she sold to the Chicanos as opposed to the Latinos?
I think
She is
everybody's
defending her own
reading.
point.
Everybody's
She
reading
is
her
defending
books.
her own production by writing to a small group of people instead of writing for the general population.
I
So
don't.
that's what we're talking
Do
don't
we
think
want
that's true.
Isabel
I
Allende to
disagree
write in
with that.
Spanglish? Gabriel Garcia Marquez to write in Spanglish? There comes a point where it makes
Nobody
no
is
sense.
saying
Indeed,
that,
Isabel
Luis.
Allende
No
has
one
a
was
wonderful
saying
book where if you
Several books.
want to consider
Several.
Spanglish, I'm talking about one title where Spanglish is being used. Why? Because
What title?
part of the book it happens in el este de Los Angeles.
No,
And
no.
language
Pero ella-
cannot be separated
but
from
yeah,
culture.
she went
That's
to-
what
she
we're
did the
talking
opposite,
about.
That is-
but she doesn't
We're
write
not
in
talking
Spanglish.
about the elimination of the standard Spanish or standard English.
We
There's a
will be
place for
back
that.
next week with Café California speaking standard something or other.
not Chinglish,
Listen,
huh?
no Chinglish, nothing like that. I want to talk about the fact that, you know, Spanglish has been around for a long time. Words that the cowboys used to word, like vaquero was buckaroo, la riata became lariat,
Vaquero.
and those are ancient words. Yeah, they
Comes
say
from vaca,
buckaroo.
cow.
I know, but they say buckaroo, and that came from vaquero in Spanish. And a bunch of words, 200 years ago, the Mexicans were saying it, and the Americans had to make their version of it.
Let's
so,
go to a
I mean,
state
I
like-
think it's been going on for
Let's
years.
go to a state quickly. Let's go to a state like Alabama and Louisiana when Cajun
I like
people
Louisiana.
speak French. You know, do they mix French?
Send your questions and comments to www.kcet.org. Café California would like to say muchas gracias to the KCET Community Advisory Board and Telemundo.
For over 30 years, Telecu has built its reputation in the community on a foundation of service, empowerment, advancement, and the creation of self-sufficiency, achieving multifaceted growth through innovation and collaboration.
And we really believe that the greatest social good that you do for an individual is the creation of a full-time job so that he or she may clothe, feed, and educate their own families.
Telecu, a pioneering institution for the ages.